Okay, so let's get started. So as you can see on the screen that I will be speaking on the incident response. The topic is, so how many guys work in incident response here? Okay, just two. Okay, three. Okay, so basically, my name is SyedZaidi, and I work as a senior incident responder at Sophos, and I am in industry for 15 years, where I have worked in DFIR and IT. I have masters in network communication and security, and hold several JAC certifications, GCFA, GCIH. Uh, what I do is what I love. I love DFIR and threat hunting because that gives me a satisfaction, which I do. I love to help people. So in case you want to connect with me after this talk, uh, happy to do so on LinkedIn. I can help you mentor like how you can excel in incident response and threat hunting. I am a strong believer in learning and research that you have to keep learning and doing research. Don't stop. Always, willing to get the answers like why, what, and how, because that always, helps you excel in life. And this is my quote here that your team strength lies in the weakest person in your team. How strong you are. But if your team has a member who has no understanding of what to do and you're not helping that person, then that is your strength. So help your team, train, collaborate, and make your team strong. So as you can see on this screen that there are these few topics which are pretty complicated and have less understanding from the incident response perspective, like that is scoping, the incident impact, dwell time, threat intelligence, IoT development, and visibility. So these are the few topics I will be covering today to give you the better understanding that what I have learned, what I have seen while working as an incident responder, that I will be speaking about. So let's take a real life example. Like uh, in your house, there is a robbery and incidents do happen. So how would you handle that incident? Would you just do nothing? Definitely not. You will take several steps. So for example, the first thing you should be looking for is how they get access to your house, how they came in. And that is the access control part, like how they got the initial foothold in your house. And then once you have taken care of that, you can cover that like, okay, they came through the door. How they came, like, is a key which they have that? Is a fingerprint lock which is being vulnerable and being hacked? So that thing will lead you to some answers. And once you move further, what was their motive here? Like why they came? They came here for just to steal some documents, to steal the crown jewels, and etc. And then if you go further here, and you might see that, okay, I have some cameras installed, I have some sensors here. Why they didn't detect when the threat actor or that robber came into your house? So this means they might have hacked it, and they might be watching you. And that is the persistence mechanism which they can use to come back in later. And then you need to also look at like how they have evaded those things, like your door lock, your fingerprint sensors, your cameras. So definitely they have done the defense evasion to evade those things and to get their goal. The reason why I speak about here is because in cyber world, it's the same thing. Like, it's the same thing. But what changed is the demographics. Because To come to your house or to your bank, they have to be physically there. But in cyber world, they can be anywhere. They can be anywhere. And they are like do some reconnaissance from like sitting in Russia or Georgia, and you are totally unaware of that. So that's the reason basically I have taken a real life example, mapping it with the cyber world. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are familiar with this 6 phases of the incident response. The first step is preparation. Second step is identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. What I will talk about is specifically about what people miss there. Like in the preparation phase, if you don't prepare well for the incidents, all these 5 steps will be very difficult. But even if you prepared well in your preparation phase, you might have difficulty in these 3 phases if you don't cover these 2 steps well. Why? Because when incident happens, all businesses approach to recovery. Like we have to recover, we have to recover. We want to go back to business. And that's where the problem starts. So you have to first identify and scope the incident. What it means is, so for example, a company A has been hit by the ransomware attack, right? And the IT guy checks, okay, there are only 3 machines which are, I can see has an impact, like the files being encrypted, and there's some other activity going on. And they go for remediation and recovery. So what will happen is that you are going for only 3 machines where threat actor have moved to 20 or 30 or 40 machines. So you have to scope well, because if you don't scope, you will go there, and then again you have to come back here again, which is very costly, right? Because that will take number of days, human resources, and many things. Once you do with the scoping here, you have to make sure that you understand what is containment and intelligence development. Most people think that containment is that you have to just block the IPs on their firewall, or just block the hash and we are good enough. No. The main purpose of the containment is to know that how the threat actor has put a foot in your environment, how they have came in. Like it can be anything. It can be the RDP, which is Remote Desktop Protocol, one of the most famous attack vector which threat actors use to come in your environment. And if right now, if anybody of you guys use Shodan, you can see right now there are almost 10,000 plus servers worldwide which are exposed to internet via RDP. So you see, it's very easy for them to come in. So you have to make sure that you contain the incident well. This part is all about developing the intelligence. Means that as you are doing the containment, you are investigating, you are analyzing the machines, and while doing that, you have to record those indicators of compromise. Means you are investigating a machine, for example, and you see that, okay, they run Mimikatz. Mimikatz is a tool to gather credentials. So you have to record that event with the time and some other parameters. If you don't do that, and if you are like, okay, I can just take a paper, write down there, then once you reach to this phase of eradication, you will be missing the IOCs. You will be missing what has been done by the threat actor. So you have to make sure that during this phase of containment and intelligence development, you are doing the right things by containing, by recording all indicator of compromises and move this phase. Here, you have two options. Like you have to either just do the eradication or move on, or you do something more here. Because people think that, okay, we have removed the threat actor and that's it. But you have to make sure how the threat actor have moved on that machine or their environment. If you only, focus on removing the threat actor, you might have more things to do. So for example, if you have been hit by an adversary, which is scripted, and you know about the IOCs, that's fine. But if you have been hit by the APT, or you are being hit by some other unknown APTs, then you have to make sure that you rebuild your machines. Because if you're not rebuilding your machines, that's the issue. And then in the recovery phase, we recover the business. But the most important part of recovery is that you should have goals to improve. Because if you are focusing on that, okay, my business has been restored and we are good to go, we are getting money, then I bet that you will be hit again. You will be hit again. Because one thing is for sure, that if you have been hit by adversary, you have to take drastic measures here. You have to make sure that now you have enough defense capabilities to protect against. Because why? Because during all these phases, you have to make sure that you know one thing, that threat actor came in your environment and they know your weakness. They know your weakness, that you don't have a good EDR solution, you don't have CM, you don't have the good firewall, or your firewall is vulnerable, not patched. So if you don't take that actions before you go to this phase, this means you are planning for another incident to hit you. And in this phase, what you're going to do is that first thing you have to do, make sure that incident is over. You have to do the validation that there are nothing left behind. Number two, what you need to do is that sit together and discuss, like what went well, what went bad, because you have to improve your things. So for example, you were hit by the ransomware and it took you around 4 weeks to recover your business. Is this what you want? Or you want to have in just 1 week or 2 weeks? And how you can achieve that? That's the thing basically you should be doing here. This slide basically is what I have discussed already before. And you can see here that these are the phases, what we have discussed and what you should do. Okay, visibility. Based on my experience, and trust me, businesses who are hit by ransomware, 90% of them don't have a visibility of their assets. Like they don't know where the assets are lying. And what I mean is not the money, but the machines, the servers, the endpoints, the Wi-Fi routers, the device, where are they residing? And do you have the count of that? Because you might not be knowing your assets, but I can assure you the threat actor knows your asset, because they know that that's the pivot point they will use to come to your network. So that's a key. That visibility is a key in response. What you cannot see, you cannot protect. So you have to make sure you have enough visibility of your environment, because the thing is that This point might confuse you, but this is a very honest point here, because if you don't know your asset, you might not patch it. And it might be the most vulnerable machine in your network. And that's what threat actor loves, because they try to exploit the vulnerability. They want less noise. So rather, they go to a difficult task to get into your network. They will find that weakness, which you are unaware of. So, visibility. This slide basically is all about the scoping and containment of an incident. You can see here that no scoping. If you don't scope well, that means you don't have an idea about how bad is the intrusion, how deep they are in your network. And if you don't do this well, this means you should be ready for another incident. No containment. That is like a mole game, because what you're doing is that, okay, I have a very good scope here. I know that, okay, these machines were hit by the ransomware. I know it. Good scoping. But you're not closing the door here. And people are coming inside, right? So you have to make sure that, okay, you have done a good scoping, but you have to contain the incident well. And while doing these two things, you have to make sure that you're recording things as you investigate. Otherwise, it can be a nightmare. Because if you don't record, because what you're doing actually, you're doing the incident response and forensics. And in forensics, the key is on your notes, that how well you record those things. And if you don't do this well, that can be an issue. And as you can see here, the goal of the containment is you need to make sure that your defense is enough good to make the threat actor frustrated. Because when they get frustrated, they will do mistakes. And we have seen that, because I have been in the incidents where we can see that we are fighting with a live threat actor. And when they do this, when we have these things, I can see that threat actor mistypes commands. They do mistakes. And that mistakes are very noisy. You can pick them on the CM or your EDR, etc. So, if you don't scope well, you don't contain. This is what happened. And this is one of our incidents I worked on. And you can see here that 3 threat actors, Lockbit, Hive, Black Cat, 3 threat actors destroyed that organization within just 2 weeks. And how they came in? They came in via RDP. And the most interesting part is that you can see here that this incident happened in April to May. And this thing is in December. So that means that 6 months before the incident happened, someone got to know about that their RDP is open. And you can see here IAB, initial access brokers. They are the ones, basically, who knows about these things. Like, okay, their port is open, or their machine is vulnerable. And they go to dark web and sell those things. So that's what exactly happened here. That in December, someone got access to the RDP. They sold that to these threat actors. And then you can see here that on 20th April, they came in, they did data exfiltration. They run Mimikatz to get credentials, because to execute a malware with a privilege, you need to have credentials. And then, just after 3 days, they execute ransomware. But things got interesting, because just after few hours, Hive came in and they did encryption. And then, just when they were doing a self-remediation, because they were doing self-remediation, and what they were doing is, they were just rebuilding the machines. Black Cat ransomware hit them. And Black Cat ransomware was a pretty nasty attacks. They just destroy you completely. And that's what happened. Like that attack completely destroyed them, and we came there for help. Here you can see what happened with them. And this is very rare to see actually. And this is the file, and you can see that Lockbit did the encryption. And then Hive encrypted the same file. And then again, Hive see that, okay, that's not their extension, so Lockbit will encrypt again. And then they see, okay, that's not our extension, we will encrypt again. And then Black Cat does the third encryption. And you can see a single file was encrypted almost 5 times. And what happened in this situation is that, okay, you are a big company and you have money and you want to pay ransom. Okay, so what will happen? You have to pay ransom at least 3 times. And even yet, if you pay the ransom and get the decryptor, you won't be able to decrypt, because if the file is being encrypted multiple times, the bit changes. So you won't be able to even decrypt. But what you can do is you can request them, okay, please don't leak our data on the dark web. And other topic that is incident versus impact is something really not understand well. The businesses always comes into action when they are hit by the impact. Because if you see that the encryption is the last step, it's not the first step. So you have to make sure that you are doing a good detection. You are seeing things in your environment, because before the encryption, they have done several things. They have to take the foothold in your environment. They have to escalate their privileges. They have to move in your environment, and that's really noisy. If you have a good CM, you can really watch that moving. And defense evasion, very noisy, because when you do that, your Windows machines, your Windows servers trigger several alerts. So it's pretty noisy. So if you can stop the attack here, you can defend against the ransomware, because this is just a small subset of the whole incident. They have to go all these phases, which are really noisy, really detectable, before they went to a final phase. But there's a catch here. And the catch is this thing, that dwell time. And if you can see that this is a box and whisker plot, and you can see here that this part, and this is right now, the maximum number of days threat actor was in the environment was 120 plus days. And that's the median, that's the average is 60 days. And this year, the maximum days is just 41. And 20 is the average days. So you have to make sure that you are in a good detection. Know your environment, know what's happening, because if you don't act quick, you won't be able to stop the attack. The last dwell time requires a speedy action from all the defenders. If you don't do well, that can be an issue and lead to the overall attack. IoT development. Many defenders don't do that. They're okay, I will record those IOCs, indicator of compromise, in my own notes, and will contribute in the defense. But the thing is that these incidents require a collaboration, and you need to make sure that you are having a single sheet to record all those events, because that will help and help you in a very long way. Why? The indicators compromise. You need to make sure that you're checking throughout your environment. And if you record well, that will improve your threat intelligence, one thing. Number two, it will automate your incident response. So for example, if you find malicious activity on 3 machines, what you're going to do is you will not do in-depth investigations of all the 100 machines. You have to be quick here. And that quickness will come from these IOCs. That what it will do is that through your EDR. So for example, we have Sophos. In Sophos, what we can do is we can run OS queries. Do you know about OS queries? Anyone? Okay. So basically, OS queries is that you need to write a SQL query. So for example, select from this thing. So you convert that SQL query into a meaningful OS query to search for these indicators throughout your environment. And in just few minutes time, where you will go to every machine, you can just query 1,000 machines at a time and find out, okay, what happened actually. So it really speeds up the enterprise incident response. And one more important part about this is that you need to make sure that your notes in incident response are so good that not you, but your team member or your team lead can reproduce the same incident from this IOC sheet. Because if they cannot, then this means that you have not done the good job here. So this is all about IOC development. Remediation and recovery. So before we have spoken about what you should do in remediation and recovery. Here, we will speak about the failures. Because if we don't do things accordingly, they will fail. And the first part is that you have to do the proper scoping. Because if you don't do the proper scoping, and remediation will fail. What you do in remediation? You have to rebuild machines, you have to do some other things. So for example, if you believe that only 5 machines were infected and you remediate them, you haven't scoped well. And that will be the biggest failure. And you have to understand the intrusion. Like what it means basically is know your threat actor, what it do. Like don't focus on the IOCs. So for example, if you are hit by a Black Cat ransomware, go online, read about them and what they do. Because might be you are missing that thing. And okay, these ransomware group Lockbit comes, they encrypt your machines and do these things. Black Cat might be doing some other stuff. So if you don't know your attacker, that can be a big issue. And the most important part is validate your steps of remediation. You have to validate. This means, for example, we have many cases where during remediation, we ask our customer, okay, can you block this C2 IP address, that is command and control IP address by the threat actor? Can you block that? They say, okay, we have done that. But few hours later, we are seeing the same activity from that IP address. So this means you have to make sure that you validate each and every step. If you are rebuilding a machine, you have to make sure that you rebuild it properly, knowing all the parameters you know about the threat actor here. Once you move towards the recovery phase, this thing is pretty clear. But this part is what we have seen before. that if you don't plan to detect the attacker earlier, after moving through all the phases of incident response, you will have a reinfection. So you have to make sure that as you are moving in the incident response phases, you are taking appropriate steps to become more defensible. Because if you don't do, then we have seen just before that you will be get hit again by the ransomware groups or any other groups, or might be a script kiddie. Because if you're too open, you never know, right? These two topics basically are like very outside of incident response, based on what I have experienced, that they believe that threat intelligence is a totally different part, and threat hunting as well. No, when you're doing an incident response, you have to make sure that you are doing it the right way, because that threat intel comes during when you were investigating. So you have to make sure that you're recording those things, because that should be the key product of this phase. That's phase number 3 of the incident response. And if you're not doing it well, then you might be playing a whack-a-mole to record those IOCs, see what happened, and running again and again. This point is very important in threat intelligence. And what it means basically that once you have enough knowledge of the attacker, while going to Google, know about the attacker, that part really helps you in threat intelligence. Let's take an example here. So you have been hit by a very sophisticated adversary. They came in, they take your data, they encrypt your machines, and they clear all the tracks. Like you have no idea. Like you go to the machine and say, okay, nothing is there. I can see only files which are encrypted. But when I go to logs, there are no logs. But if you have an understanding of the threat actor intent, that okay, Black Cat ransomware, for example, when they come in, they always clear the tracks. So you will find some other artifacts in your incident response to counter that. But if you don't know, you will say, okay, this is good. You move further, and that will be a big failure in your incident response. As well as threat intelligence, how to be very effective in incident response. Threat hunting. Like threat hunting, when we speak about it's a proactive approach. Like you are doing a threat hunt to find threat actor in your environment, but incident response is responsive. So how come these two things go in one way? They have to, basically, because in incident response, threat hunting is a critical function, because what I do is basically, like if you are just going for the known IOCs of the threat actor, you might fail, because if you see the trend from 2015 till now, many threat actors have changed their tactics. Like for example, Reich ransomware is now nowhere, but they are here in a different name. Black Cat ransomware, you might not see them a few years later, but they will be there with some different tactics. And if you Google them and say, okay, I have the IOCs and they do this, you will be failing your incident response. You will be failing that. So you have to make sure that you threat hunt, because it helps you find those things which you are unaware about. And the best part about threat hunting is it helps you to uncover persistence mechanism, because that's how threat actor stays in your network because they want to maintain that thing to come back in. And then again, that threat hunting helps you to uncover the unknown TTPs, tactics and procedures taken by a threat actor. So for example, if you see that, okay, I have hit by a lockbit ransomware, and they have these TTPs, but when you do threat hunt, you find some more TTPs, okay? They do credential dumping. They do defense evasion, which they were not doing before. So if you go for known IOCs, that will not help you out. So you have to do threat hunting. So these two topics are really important if you want to do effective incident response. This part, okay, it's pretty clear. Your EDR solution, it's pretty clear thing. But what happens is that businesses think that threat actors have been really sophisticated now, like really sophisticated. And they believe, okay, why to spend $1 million to have an EDR solution? In any way, they will come and they'll destroy us. Because when the threat actors have a motive to destroy you, you will be hit. Like there's no question asked. That you will be hit if they have a motive against you. But if you have an EDR, what it will do is it will stop the attacker. It will make your incident response easy, because when threat actor will come into your environment and there's no EDR, they can do a lot of things. But when you have a good EDR solution, after coming to your environment, they have to do one thing. They have to disable and destroy your EDR. And that's not easy. They have to do a lot of things. And at Sophos, we have seen that a lot. And we have seen chats on dark web where we have seen threat actors in a conversation that, can you help us out how to disable Sophos? We have seen that. So your intent is to make the life of threat actor really hard. Because when you do that, we have seen cases where threat actor comes in, they see 2 or 3 machines, it has Sophos. Okay, let's go to other organizations which don't have enough defenses. And other part which EDR plays is that it ensures a quick and effective incident response. So for example, you guys are being called for the enterprise incident response, and there are around 4K machines. And you're like, okay, what tool we have? You Google, and you have, okay, we have a tool called Siler, which is a forensic collector, or Velociraptor, or the most famous is Kansa. You go, you download that, and you run to every machine. Just imagine that you have to run that tool on every machine. It will take time. And you know that there is a threat actor doing the attack, and you are trying to collect the logs at the same time. You have to be effective. That EDR solution will help you in the effective incident response. And how you can do that? Because if you have good visibility of your hosts, you can just run queries in your environment on all those 4K machines and see where is the threat actor right now, where it's heading to. So this thing really helps. This part basically is a little controversial, that it helps you to have the visibility of your environment, to have the unprotected machines. But based on my experience, this is really, really handy here. This is really, really handy, because what it do is that your EDR solution queries the machine and resolve the name to that DNS. If they don't have that EDR on that unprotected machine, you will see the IP address of that machine or the machine name itself. And you will know that, okay, this is the machine from where the attack is coming. So that will really, really help you out in doing a effective incident response. So right now you are in your office and you're not hit by the ransomware and you are having a very good business going on, going on, going on. But if you're not doing this thing, you are lagging behind a lot. And what this means is basically that this development exercise is all about that you do a dry run of your incident response process. So you are sitting in a conference room and someone asks you, like, okay, you have been hit by a ransomware, what you will do? Most people will say, oh, no, we're a small business. We won't be hit by ransomware. We don't have enough revenue. Or they might say, we have a solid defense. We can defend. But that's not the answer you should have. You should have an answer like this. Okay, we are being hit by a ransomware attack. We will do this, this, and this. If you can't answer that question well, then this means that you're not ready for the incident. And when you're not ready for the incident, this means you will fail. So here are the three most popular scenarios for the tabletop exercise. And one which we'll discuss right now is a ransomware incident. And why I have chosen this topic? Because right now you can see that this year, ransomware is leading the total attacks happening in the world, 66%. And the mean cost recovery for each business is around $1.82 million. That's a lot of money. For a small business or for a medium business, it's a lot of money here. So you have to make sure that you take proactive actions by doing the tabletop. And these are the few questions you should ask. Sit and ask. And this is a scenario here that your company's CFO called you and they are saying that, I can see that files are being encrypted by something. I cannot open that. There's a ransom note. And I can see that it has some text, some Bitcoin number, etc., etc. What should I do? Like what you will do? And these are the questions you would be asking yourself, your team, that what you will do here, that what would be your first course of action? Can you do incident response? Do you have the enough resources to do that? How you will identify the scope? Like how you will do that? Do you have the right people? Do you have the right knowledge about the attack? Do you have the right technical tools to defend that? And then, is it worth paying the ransom? And the most important question in every attack is where the sensitive data is stored. Because right now, as we are moving through, several companies in Canada are being hit by ransom. Just a week before, there was a company whose data was leaked on the dark web. So you have to make sure that where this data resides. Ask yourself and work out. So what I have done is that I want to make it really interactive, and I want to have your responses. I want you to help me out that I am a business owner, and how would you help me out in figuring out what should I do if I hit by a ransomware attack? So if you have your phones, please, can you go to the website, menti.com. And once you are there, I will give you the code to enter to log into that interactive test. Okay, the first question, and this is basically the code you will enter after you have gone to the website, menti.com. You will see a play option there. Just enter this code, and you will have this question in front of your screen. So, what will be your first action from this point to contain or minimize the attack? And this question is very important because there's a first step, the first step. And first step, if it's wrong, then it can be really, really bad for you guys. So, so far we have number two option, number three. Okay, so we have the results, and it looks like that once you are being hit by the ransomware, most of the people selected that you will isolate the infected machine. That's a pretty good step because if you know that this machine is having some malicious activity going on, that means that, okay, I will isolate that. But this response is equally good here because you need to make sure that you validate the incident. If that incident is happening on your endpoint, then this option is pretty good, right? You just go, get the cables out, and you call your manager that, okay, I have seen the bad activity happening. But the same thing is happening on your servers, that is your domain controller or your exchange server, then you can't just do that. You have to make sure that you have enough reason to prove your point. Because if you isolate your domain controller, no one can log in. And you will be getting a call from your CEO. Okay, it's time now. Time to go home, which you don't want, right? So these two options are good. So if you have if you have a server like domain controller, exchange server, this option will be most viable. That you validate, okay, I can see a malicious activity on those servers, and it's confirmed that there is a serious attack going on, and I will choose this path. So these two things are the right options. Bravo on that. Moving to the next question. How will you identify the scope of the attack? And why you should be doing that question is pretty important because you have to know the in-depth of the intrusion. Okay, so far, option two is winning right now. We have three options here, and I think we have all the answers, and option number two is a winner right now. So, like most of the people answered that what they will do is they will log into their CM, might be Splunk, or the EDR solution, hopefully Sophos, that you go there and see, okay, I can see this activity going on, and try to scope the incident. And that should be every company doing it. Every firm should have this capability that they can go to their EDR and CM and see and scope the attack. But unfortunately, in the real world, this is not the case. Because what we have seen that prior to the activity, is bad to say, but prior to the activity, a firm whose revenues around millions have never ever logged in to their Splunk or EDR solution. It's there, sitting in air conditioner, very happy that no one is coming there, and then attack is there. So in that case, what you should do is, if you don't have that enough capabilities, take the help from the IR team. If you don't have your IR, internal IR, take the help of the external IR, because they can be the ones who can tell you that that we have the enough capability to go in your environment and see how deep is the intrusion, and they can help you in scoping. So these two options are the best ones. This option is good if you are a very small business, like if you have 6 or 5 machines. But the problem in doing so is that here, if the person has no understanding of the attack, he might say, okay, nothing has happened. And there where you will lack. So these two options uh, are the best ones. And again, bravo on doing that. This means I can show you that you people have a good understanding of how to do IR. Okay, next question, which we have discussed before. A very, very important question. How will you identify if your sensitive data during the incident has been accessed and taken outside your environment? Okay, so we have a tie between 1 and 2. Okay, it's moving. I think we have a good results now. So let's discuss. So before we move to these 3 options, uh, someone has put anything else. And that's pretty good, you know. That's pretty good. Because that person has a better understanding of things which we are unaware about. So if that person can, just raise the hand, perfect. So what you think is should be the best option here? See, so that is the right answer here. Please. Yes. So yes, it will be situational, and that's why this answer was put here, because sometimes you have the EDR which can do this thing, but sometimes you have a DLP solution. DLP means data loss prevention, and that means that every data accessed by someone and taking out can be a problem. So these 3 options is business dependent, but this option can be very helpful. Because why? Because you might not have DLP on the machines which have a sensitive data. So for example, let's take an example here. A good example and bad one. First is a bad one, right? So you have a business where the CEO, the CFO, and the CXO, they all want all the data of the organization on their systems. Like that boss, I want every Excel sheet on my machine, and it may contain lots of your stuff. What happens there is that you install DLP on few of the systems, not the whole environment. And for example, if that is not being installed on a machine, that data can be accessed, taken out, and you will not be aware of. But if you have a good EDR solution and you can query that machine, okay, that is the file, and that's the last access time of this file, then you can pretty make sure that things are covered. So these three options are pretty good, and kudos for you for doing that. Okay, another question: what methods can you use to contain the attack? And we have discussed this, so I'm hoping we have a very good answers for this question. Okay, so we have the results, and this is basically what I was expecting as the answer here. Engage your IR team to contain the attack, because if you are going for this option, then you will be hitting again. If you are doing this option, blocking the IPs, threat actors might change those IPs and come back in. If you are doing this option, uh, it might be a bit effective, but the example which we have discussed before, the triple ransomware attack, that was happened because of all these three things. And I think we will conclude the presentation now. So before we conclude, I will just share my last slide. So we will do a short recap of the things about what we have discussed, that you need to make sure that when you're doing a cyber incident, you need to make sure that you're doing it like you're doing a live example. You have to scope the attack. Acting up in the incident is a key. You have to make sure you have a visibility and run tabletops. And I think we don't have part for the questions. So thank you very much, guys. Like it.